In a world where a single tweet can go out there and make an entire prompt for me to make a video, it is no other world than Vancouver and the Vancouver Canucks fan base. We have ourselves a tweet from Rick Dhaliwal talking about an interview that Elliotte Friedman had on Donnie and Dolly when it comes to the Canucks and what they could be planning to do. Now, there were a few tweets going over a few things, talking about Bruce Boudreau, talking about Barry Trotz. I didn't make a video about that. I don't really care, to be honest, but there are so many things to talk about when it comes to the Canucks, Andrei Kuzmenko, the coaching staff, yada, yada, yada. But this tweet in particular is a prompt that I want to talk about the most. So, we're going over onto Rick Dhaliwal's Twitter account. It's a simple tweet. It's a pretty regular sentence. He says, from Elliotte Friedman, "I do think the Canucks are trying to find a market for Oliver Ekman-Larsson, but he does have control." All's this to say is that we are going into the conversation of trying to trade Oliver Ekman-Larsson again. And I say again because it's not like the Canucks traded him before, they traded for him a year ago. But Oliver Ekman-Larsson is a player that, if you were to ask me would the team be better off with or without him on the roster, I would ask you what you're meaning, because it depends on where you're trying to put the chips. If you're talking about from an on-ice standpoint, do the Vancouver Canucks have a better on-ice product today with Oliver Ekman-Larsson versus without? I would say they're probably better with him in the lineup because he is not bad. His wins above replacement number, while being pretty poor over the past few years, has indeed taken a little bit of a jump from this season. His play in Vancouver was not terrible. It's just when you take a look at the context behind who he is, how much he's making, and who else the Canucks have in their system, it's very easy for me to say that long-term, Oliver Ekman-Larsson probably would be better off served elsewhere outside of Vancouver. He's a good player. Don't get me wrong. We've made the same point in several videos throughout the year that, yeah, when it comes to being a shutdown guy, Oliver Ekman-Larsson kind of plays a similar style to Alex Edler. They both wear 23, they're both Swedish, and they're both able to make good defensive decisions on the defensive rush in front of their own goaltender and when it comes to board play. Ekman-Larsson makes the team better, but by how much? Is that better enough to justify the amount of money he's going to be going for, and for how long that money is going to be paid out to him? Ekman-Larsson is making $7.26 million against the Vancouver Canucks cap till the end of the 2027 season, and he has got a no-move clause. So, Friedman does note that even though Ekman-Larsson is in the position where the Canucks are trying to make a trade, OEL still has control. He ultimately does have a say if the Canucks present him, hey, we're going to trade you to this team, X, and we want to make sure that you're okay with it because we have this deal, it's all on the table, we're just awaiting your approval. He has the right to say no. He can go out there and say, sorry man, I really like it here in Vancouver, so I'm not going to leave. Now, that's his right, but it is something the Vancouver Canucks do have to think about when discussing with other teams the idea of an OEL trade. We do know from last season and the negotiations that Oliver Ekman-Larsson would have accepted a trade to the Boston Bruins as well. It's just the Bruins and their own cap crunch. It's going to be difficult to try to make a trade work out there. And if the Vancouver Canucks were to trade Oliver Ekman-Larsson, which I do believe they should, they would need to retain some sort of salary on that to make sure it actually goes through. As we said, the contract goes on until 2027, so that retained salary is going to be on the books for a while. However, it does kind of strike to me that OEL wouldn't be that type of guy to stick around in a position where he knows he's not wanted. You know? Like, with all the trade talks going around, with the media talking about Oliver Ekman-Larsson, with Friedman going out here and saying, yeah, the team is trying to trade him, with all of the stuff that Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford are saying to the media, saying, yeah, we need to get faster. No offense to Oliver, but he's not the fastest guy out there. We need to get cheaper. We need to free up some salary cap space. We need to make some more money available to us. And it comes with making these trades for players that being acquired that are making significant dollar amounts. If Oliver Ekman-Larsson has a brain, which I'm pretty sure he does, he's paying attention. He knows his name is being circulated out there. He knows that his contract is probably one of the more undesirable ones in the NHL. So he probably knows that he's not wanted. Not because he's a bad player, but because he's a bad contract. And if he's in a position where he knows all this stuff, the Vancouver Canucks are so eager to trade away contracts, they're so eager to free up cap space, they're so eager to discuss players like him on the trade market, I don't think he would be the type of guy to go out there and say, yeah, no, sorry, I want to stick around. Like, I know you guys are trying to trade me. I know you guys are circulating my name. I know you guys don't like my contract. But sorry, I'm here for the long haul, baby. I don't really think he's that type of guy. He even gave the Arizona Coyotes the out earlier on in their rebuild when he said, yeah, okay, I do have a no move. So it is my choice as to whether or not I stay or go, and I want to stay here in Arizona. It's cool here. It's pretty nice. Or, excuse me, it's not cool here, it's warm here. That's the entire point that I was trying to make. But Oliver Ekman-Larsson did give the Coyotes the out. He said, okay, if you really, absolutely, 100% with no doubts need to trade me, Vancouver, Boston, screw it, I'll go there. And so, even though Arizona was handcuffed, they did trade away OEL for a huge package of Beagle, Eriksson, Roussel, and the Vancouver first, which ended up being 9th overall. Dylan Guenther is a beautiful, amazing prospect playing in the WHL right now. And then, of course, you had Connor Garland also getting sent over to Vancouver because the Canucks needed some value coming back the other way. Garland does provide that. But OEL was traded to Vancouver. And now, in a position where Friedman is saying that, yeah, the Canucks are trying to shop him again. There might be some more conversations about Oliver Ekman-Larsson in the future, but he does have control. To me, it doesn't feel like OEL would only accept a trade to Boston because that's the only other team that he had on his trade list a year ago. To me, if Alvin and Rutherford sat down and had a thorough conversation with him and said, hey, this is the situation, we don't like your contract, we have a trade for you on the table, will you say yes? I feel like he would say yes. Now, of course, there are some teams that he probably would not say yes to, like, oh, do you want to get traded to Arizona again, playing in a college arena? He probably says no to that. There are probably a few teams that he would likely say, okay, no, I really don't want to play for that team, so I'm sorry, but I think that if you're smart enough and you traverse the trade market well enough and you say, hey, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, he's on the market, he's this, he's that, he's good enough, we'll retain salary too, as Vancouver does. Would you want to take this guy? I think there would be a suitable amount of teams that are good enough that Oliver Ekman-Larsson would probably be convinced to be able to go to. And I do think that those teams would be getting value. It's just the Canucks might need to add a sweetener to make them accept that deal, because this contract at $7.2-something million a year till the end of 2027 is not a good one. It goes on till OEL is going to be 35. Like, I'm sorry, but the guy went out there with, how many points did he get this season? 29 points in 79 games. He was almost outproduced by Chris Tanev and Eric Branson. Like, the guy's point per game last year on the Arizona Coyotes was so much better than what he did this year. And with the entire situation of the Canucks and their decor, you're playing behind a number one defenseman in Quinn Hughes. That's going to be tough to beat. You're not on the number one power play. We saw what he did on the power play. He was good, and I made videos saying, yeah, no, he's not a bad player. When you give him the opportunity to really succeed, when you give him a stage, Oliver Ekman-Larsson performs. But that's just not where the Vancouver Canucks are. They have Hughes, yes. They also have Rathbone. It's been confirmed pretty much that Rathbone is going to be a Canuck next year, so where does OEL slot in after that? I think the Canucks long-term would prefer to have Rathbone develop into a number 2 power play quarterback, and so if the plan is to put him in a position to eventually fulfill that role, OEL just is the odd man out, and he's going to be here till 2027 if he doesn't get traded. So at what point do you say, darn it, he is not going to be on any power play, he is not going to be in the top 4, he is just going to be a guy making $7 million against the Canucks cap, who probably is a lot more talented than the minutes that he will be seeing. Sure, he got a lot of defensive shutdown minutes against top team matchups with the Tyler Myers pairing, and sure, he didn't do poorly in that role. It's just, he's worth too much, his contract is too long, and he doesn't line up with what the Canucks have on their left side in the long term. Because Hughes and Rathbone are right there, and you can't have a guy making $7 million playing on your bottom pairing. So let me know in the comments all your thoughts about Oliver Ekman-Larsson, the entire philosophy that they are going to trade him. It appears that that conversation has been ignited. So I'm really interested in seeing, where do you think Oliver Ekman-Larsson is going to go if he does get traded? Do you think the Canucks will have to add a sweetener should they actually make a trade because, hey, his contract is of negative value because it's so long and it's so expensive? Talk to me in the comments all your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video. Trolls 99. And bye.